So Ruben Loftus-Cheek played pretty well on his England debut against Germany after a surprise call-up to the Three Lions senior side, despite not really impressing while on loan at Crystal Palace. The midfielder's performance had some people touting him as a future star of the game, with his year at Crystal Palace being pivotal in his development. If Loftus-Cheek can do the business at Selhurst Park, then it could prove to Chelsea that he's ready for Premier League football and could go on to become a Blues regular. This loan spell could be a career-defining year for Loftus-Cheek, so let's take a look at 6 other players who had career-defining loan moves away from Chelsea. First up, we've got Romelu Lukaku. While Lukaku's loan moves didn't lead to a future with his parent club at the time, things worked out perfectly for the Belgian due to his 2 temporary moves away from Stamford Bridge. After signing for Chelsea in 2011 for big money from Anderlecht, Lukaku got a loan move to West Brom the following year, where he first made his name in the Premier League, finishing the season with one of his best tallies ever in the English top flight so far. The forward hit 17 goals on loan at the Baggies, including a hat-trick on the final day in a 5-5 draw with Manchester United, Sir Alex Ferguson's final game in charge of the Red Devils. The following season, Lukaku started with Chelsea's first team, but after missing the deciding penalty in the Super Cup final, he was away again, joining Everton on loan on transfer deadline day. He hit 16 goals in all competitions, showing he wasn't just a flash in the pan, and then joined Everton permanently in 2014 for £28 million. The loan moves didn't help him achieve his Chelsea goals, but Lukaku was able to make a name for himself, leading to him eventually joining Manchester United this summer for a massive £75 million. Next up, it's THIBAUT Courtois. Another Belgian youngster who Chelsea loaned out was THIBAUT Courtois, and the goalkeeper was even more successful away from Stamford Bridge than Lukaku was. Having arrived as one of the most highly rated young goalkeepers around in 2011, Courtois was immediately loaned to Atletico Madrid to be their number 1 keeper, with David De Gea having just joined Man United. In fact, Courtois would spend 3 consecutive years at Atleti, winning a league title, a Copa del Rey, Europa League, UEFA Super Cup, before almost capping it all off with a Champions League triumph. After 3 years, he was deemed ready to replace Petr Cech as the Chelsea number 1, and he's been one of the Premier League's best stoppers ever since, a shining example of how Chelsea have correctly used the loan system. Next, we've got Daniel Sturridge. The forward was highly rated back when he was still with Manchester City, and he would join Chelsea in 2009, but got limited game time at Stamford Bridge, especially with Didier Drogba still leading the line at the peak of his powers at the time. Come January 2011, and Sturridge got his chance, joining Bolton on loan until the end of the season, where he sensationally scored 8 goals in 12 Premier League outings, and thus forcing his way into Chelsea's plans the next year. In the 2011-12 season, Sturridge made 30 league appearances and scored 11 goals, although most of his time was spent out wide. Still not the main man at Chelsea, Sturridge joined Liverpool in January 2013, and the goals immediately flowed, linking up brilliantly with Luis Suarez as the Reds nearly won the Premier League title the following season. Injuries derailed Sturridge's progress, but the loan move to Bolton was what got his Premier League career going in the first place. Next up, it's Andreas Christensen. Our most recent player to have been loaned away from Stamford Bridge, Andreas Christensen is now back in London and showcasing what he learned from his 2 years at Borussia Mönchengladbach. The Danish defender was part of a long list of Chelsea players who had been loaned out when the spotlight first came on their abuse of the loan system, but Christensen always seems to have been cited as a future Chelsea player, so much so that they rejected a £14 million bid from Mönchengladbach after the first year of his loan. Since returning, Christensen has been in and out of Antonio Conte's side, but has performed admirably when called upon, looking a lot more steady than the aging Gary Cahill or new signing Antonio Rudiger, so it looks like there is going to be a future for Christensen at the Bridge, mainly because of his performances out in Germany. Up next, it's Mohamed Salah. A Chelsea flop by all accounts, it's hard to believe it's the same man at Liverpool nowadays. After moving to Chelsea from Basel in January 2014, the Egyptian made just 13 Premier League appearances over the course of the year and headed to Fiorentina on loan, where the pacey wide man impressed with his 6 goals before the end of the season. The following summer he moved to Roma on loan with a view to a permanent deal, showing that Chelsea had basically given up on Salah. He would have the last laugh though, scoring for fun for Roma both on loan and permanently, thus making Liverpool fork out more than £36 million for the winger. Despite not being wanted by Chelsea, Salah seized his chance while on loan and showcased how good a player he can be, and the 25-year-old has been one of the Premier League's best players so far this season. And finally, we've got Kevin De Bruyne. One of Chelsea's greatest mistakes, the case of Kevin De Bruyne will continue to haunt the Blues until he hangs up his boots. After signing from Genk in 2011, De Bruyne would remain in Belgium until the end of the season on loan, and once he arrived at Stamford Bridge, he was almost immediately loaned out again to Werder Bremen for a year, to gain some valuable first-team experience in a higher quality division. After scoring 10 goals for Bremen, De Bruyne started the next season in the Chelsea lineup, but just after 3 Premier League appearances he was sold to Wolfsburg in January 2014 for £18 million, with the German club clearly impressed with De Bruyne's efforts at Werder Bremen. At Wolfsburg, De Bruyne showcased the same form he showed at Bremen, and by 2015 he was Manchester City's record signing for £54 million, and he's now one of the best players in the Premier League. But who knows if that would be the case if he hadn't performed on loan in the Bundesliga. So those are 6 players who had career-defining loan moves away from Stamford Bridge. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and whether or not Loftus-Cheek has a future at Stamford Bridge. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe.